Hallo, hoi. Ja, daar
Ja.
werk ik.
Ja.
Hello? Oh, wow, okay, that's very different. It sounds like there's a microphone on. Okay, welcome everybody. So it's pitch day as part of the Charm EU Doctoral Summer School. So as part of this summer school, we've had a number of doctoral researchers working on a broad set of sort of global challenges. And in particular, they've been working on developing transdisciplinary practice in order to tackle these complex problems. So they've been working across the last sort of 2 weeks. If I can get my clicker here to work. So there's been a mixture of cultural activities. So there was, I think there was sort of like sauna, lots of sauna. And in particular, there was an evening of salsa, as you can sort of see here on the pictures. So there was fun to be had, but it wasn't all fun. There was lots of different presentations given around sort of developing transdisciplinary practice, pitching, integration of ideas, and yeah, there was also alongside that a lot of group work. So we're going to see the culmination of that work. So they initially started about 2 weeks ago, where they were introduced to a challenge that was given by a variety of different stakeholders, and they met online first, and then they've come here to Turku for the week, and they've been working intensely on that. And we're going to see the culmination of that, the results from that this today. So the sort of format today is to deliver a 9-minute pitch. So they'll have 1 minute to set up, and then have 5 minutes questions afterwards. So we're going to first open the questions to the stakeholders to ask questions first, and then we have a panel of jury here who were the coaches during the week as well to ask questions, follow up on that. I'm going to pass you over to Clara.
Thanks. Could you move to the next slide, please? And this is the secret order we have developed in which the pitches will take place. As you can see, it's a broad, range of topics, actually starting with AI competences. Of course, AI cannot be missed here. And these are roughly estimates of the local time here. So as Jake just said, each group will have around 15 minutes of time, so you can check which ones you would like to hear, but of course we recommend listening to all of them. And that's basically it. Good luck to all people here pitching, and the first group can start, I would say.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all for being here today. We are really happy that we are a part of the summer school, and we are looking forward to present you our project as the first group. So our project has the title Mapping the AI Competency Gap Between Higher Education and the Media Industry, a transdisciplinary methodology. First of all, we want to introduce ourselves so that you can get a chance to know a bit about our backgrounds.
Hi everyone, my name is Yasmin. I am from Trinity College Dublin, and my PhD research focuses on refugee children's adjustment to schools in Ireland through the praxis of resilience.
Hi, my name is Karina. I'm a PhD student from Hochschule Ruhr-West in Germany, and my research focuses on consumer behavior in extended reality applications for shopping and retailing.
Hi everyone, I'm Sanaz, a doctoral researcher at Obo Academy University. My research focuses on analyzing the customer reviews about sustainable products. I'm using machine learning and large language models. Thank you for being here.
I'm Alina from the University of Würzburg in Germany. I'm doing my PhD in the field of microbiology, especially I'm working with infectious diseases.
Hello everyone, my name is Francisco Hernandez. I'm actually from the Universidad de Barcelona in Spain. I'm doing my PhD in education and society. My research is related to artificial intelligence in higher education and health science education.
So now, imagine you're a student right now, and you're living in the age of AI, artificial intelligence. And you're lucky, right? It makes life easier. But does it really? So maybe you're struggling with how to use it. You can use it in your studies, but also you're wondering, how can I use it in my future work? And this is basically what a student at the University of Bergen in a media-related studies program is experiencing right now. While in the Nordic region, AI adoption is really high, higher education is struggling to implement competencies related to AI use in the curricula in teaching. And they are also struggling to implement skills that are needed in the media industry that are related to AI. And that basically leads us to the AI competency gap, where the needs and expectations of each stakeholder group doesn't align right now.
Okay, so I think Karina laid out our initial kind of challenge pretty clearly. There's this competency gap. And when we first started this week, we thought, fantastic. This is a great research question, and we can definitely solve that. And then within about 2 days, we realized that might be a little bit unrealistic, and that AI competency is actually a massive term. What is AI competency? How many competencies are there? What's the most important? And so having kind of realized that ourselves, we were very fortunate to go into discussion with our 3 main stakeholders, so University of Bergen academics, students, and also media industry professionals. And it was a really interesting, engaging discussion. And one of the things that all 3 of them agreed on was this idea that critical thinking is this foundational AI competency. So they all had this shared agreement, but there wasn't really a consensus of what is critical thinking in AI era? What are the different dimensions that we need most? And what role does higher education play in instilling that? So that kind of refocused our angle where we said, okay, so the problem isn't necessarily identifying all the AI competencies in the entire world. The problem is figuring out what specific dimensions of critical thinking are most needed and what role do universities play in that. So I think from what we've said so far, we've maybe made it clear that this is a really large-scale, complex problem, right? In our discussion, we've mentioned students, we've mentioned academics, we've mentioned industry. But AI usage also crosses all sectors of society, right? It's a societal question. And I think that underlines the need for a transdisciplinary approach that not only involves different societal actors, but also involves different disciplines. I think thus far we've mentioned machine learning, education, media industry, but the list can go on and on. I think we're all in universities where the question of AI is really prevalent. So moving away from the kind of transdisciplinary aspect, we also wondered, well, what solution could we create that would have this long-term societal impact, right? We don't just want to help out higher education, we also want this to be broader than that. Francisco's going to talk a lot more about our solution, but just to give you a taster, I wanted to run through some of the impacts we're hoping to have. So education, broadly speaking, we're primarily working within higher education. But we're also talking about a sector, the media sector, that are gatekeepers of knowledge. So how important is it in this age of misinformation to have competent AI actors within that? I'm not going to go into the alignment of labour market needs in higher education. We can kind of remember that. But finally, I just want to mention that we want this solution to be transferable and scalable. So beyond the University of Bergen, that we can apply it across different universities.
And as we were saying before, big challenges require innovation in solutions. And for that reason, we are talking about our solution is not going to be only one solution. It's going to be a transdisciplinary methodology that can be applied not only in this context itself, but in many contexts. The idea of this solution is that we are going to have a three-phase critical AI thinking in media education sequential mix methods. We're going to start with phase one, in which these people are going to map what is happening right now in the literature related to artificial intelligence in critical thinking. They are going to follow PRISMA 2020 guidelines to follow that, and we're going to research a little bit about this space. In the second fieldwork, we're going to work on two different methods. We're going to work quantitative. We need to know the perception of the different stakeholders, but in a global and in a big stage. And then we're going to work with them. We're going to work with them to create a solution, a contextual solution in different workshops. The idea is the answer is not going to be one answer that we are going to give them. It's an answer that it's going to be fixed with them. And finally, we're going to triangle all this information, and this is going to be contextual. And that's why this is really, really important, because it can be transferable to different other contexts.
So now I want to summarize. We had our big problem, which was to identify the AI competency gap between different stakeholder groups. And with the interviews with the different stakeholders, we identified that critical thinking is the AI competency we want to work with. We established a transdisciplinary methodology that allows us to identify and bridge this gap in the critical thinking of AI competency. And this methodology is also transferable to other sectors. So it can be used in the health sector or in the project management, whatever you can imagine. And hopefully you have noticed during our talk that the project has a very high scientific and societal impact. And now we are at the end of our talk. We hope that you have learned about how to map the AI competency gap between higher education and the media industry. And we want to thank all the stakeholders for the interviews because they were very, very important for this project. And we want to thank the organizers of the summer schools for putting together such a great event. And we are very happy that we could be part of it. And now we want to thank you for your attention and are open to your questions.
Thanks very much for the presentation. So I'll first open the questions to Lars as the stakeholder.
Yes, hello. My name is Lars Myhre, and I'm one of the stakeholders because I'm the deputy department leader at the University of Bergen's information and media educations. So I thank you. It's a very interesting approach you have where you focus on critical thinking. I think that's the core of the whole thing, actually. And then in addition, you have particular skill sets. For a media producer, you have different skill sets from a health worker, of course, but the critical thinking towards the AI phenomenon and all those confusions and these massive impacts, I think that's the right place to start. So as a stakeholder, I would also think very practically on how could we use your methodology or the results of your work. So maybe that's it's not like a critical question, but I really need solutions. I have 3 years left in my role as deputy leader. What can we concretely achieve before I retire from that function?
We weren't able to put like this in the presentation because we have a really limited time, but we developed a little mock-up of a website in which you can download every template related to how is the Prisma 2020 guidelines, how you can create a scoping review, how can you develop this workshop, and how can you develop this survey. You're going to have the whole pack. We already have it, and we wanted to present it, but we have the answer for that.
Nice, thank you. That's very concrete. That's exactly what I think most departments would actually need.
Okay, thank you. Any from the jury?
I'm Zoltán Istenes from ELTE Faculty of Informatics, so my question is a bit critical. Why critical thinking is the most important thing? Don't you think that it's a little bit of the negative part, because we have experience of hallucination and bias and all the problems that we have actually with AI, and all these things will be solved later. I think it cannot be the same with cars and electricity. You remember with the cars, there was a man with a red flag because it was very dangerous and nobody knew how is electricity working, what is microwave oven working. And now we are using these tools. So why not trying to focus on the positive parts? For example, how to work with AI, how to create with AI, how to innovate with AI, how to humans can better work with AI tools.
Thank you for your question. I'm going to answer it in 2 parts, if that's okay. So the first part of that was that we actually took that aspect from discussion with stakeholders who were working in the field and addressed that as their main need. That was one of our primary goals, was not to address this purely as researchers who, aren't necessarily on the ground dealing with it, but to approach it from a more, I guess, nuanced perspective, speaking with people. So it partially came from the stakeholders. It also comes a little bit from the literature. And I think in the literature, I don't necessarily know that I understood critical thinking as a negative side of AI, so much as it is a balanced approach to AI, right? I don't think any of us in this project aim to conceptualize AI as good or bad, or anything like that. It's more, how are we going to approach this with care? And within critical thinking, you can use AI in a very positive way. We're not saying don't use AI, we're saying use AI and have these checks and balances. And I'm going to use a quote from one of our stakeholders, a student who had this fantastic metaphor where she basically said, trying to use AI, what was it? It was like trying to ride a bike without knowing what a bike was. You need to know what it looks like before you can use it. And I think that really encapsulates our approach to the importance of critical thinking. It's not about not using AI, it's about using it in a way that actually enhances you.
Hi, thank you so much for your presentation. You were the first, so very brave as well. So apart from critical thinking as a crucial AI competency, you also made another bold statement, which is media as gatekeepers of knowledge. What does this, if this is true, what does this require from the researcher? Like, should we as researchers, I'm from Utrecht University in the Netherlands, should we develop media skills, for example? And if so, what kind of skills are they?
Okay, I can try and answer this as well. Feel free to jump in. I suppose to answer again the first part of that first, the idea of media as gatekeepers of knowledge, that again came from our discussion with stakeholders. And one of the things that really emerged is we're in this era of misinformation. I think it's been ranked as quite a large challenge internationally. how, if you're someone who is transmitting news to people, how do you ensure that you are being ethical with that, that you're ensuring that the sources are valid? How can you use AI in that? Can you use AI in that? So we were thinking more as media, as gatekeepers of knowledge in that sense, and that very much so emerged in our discussions with them. With regards to should we all have media skills, that's maybe a larger question than something we discussed. I suppose, what is media skills, right? Is it how you present yourself and how you are in discussion with your colleagues? In which sense, maybe we should all have it, but maybe we already have that, right? So I'm not quite sure how to address that part of the question. But yeah, from the first component, it very much so came from the stakeholders, is media more important than ever in this era of AI? And again, interestingly, something they all brought up was the importance of journalism as being really relevant in today's world. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we've come to time on the questions, so thanks very much for those answers. Could the next team, yeah, thanks.
Okay, I will start by asking everyone to close their eyes. It's 4:30 a.m. and you've just woken up, and because of where you live, the sun is just about touching the horizon. You grab a cup of coffee and you put on your boots, which are still dirty from the day before. You step outside. And you've been walking these fields for 30 years. You know them better than anyone. And you know the ocean. And you've seen the sea change because you watch it every single day. You changed. You reduced your fertilizer. You adapted your fields. And you invested in the new equipment. But the sea did not recover. And not because you failed, because of a complex system. And the sea stayed sick, and the researchers came back and asked for more data, not looking at all the data you already had submitted. And over time, the trust was broken, and not because of any one side not wanting a solution to the problem, but because of a problem of knowledge transfer, a structural problem without any immediate solution. And this is where our project begins. Not with a mathematical model or in a lab, but by connecting to the people who collect the data every single day. The data which might help save the ocean. So now you can open your eyes.
And at this point of time, you might want to know what is that complex system causing all that problems? And that is called eutrophication. Eutrophication is a vicious circle sort of thing, like you have an overpresence of nutrients in the sea. They make algae and other plants grow a lot. They cover the sea surface. There is no sunlight coming through anymore. And when they die, they use up all the oxygen there and leaves a basically dead water floor on the sea. So there is nitrogen and phosphorus causing the death of aquatic life and the loss of biodiversity. And that is called and understood like aquatic eutrophication. As you can see in the map, there is a drainage area marked out, and that is huge for a little water type of sea like the Baltic Sea is. And you see that is quite huge in comparison to the water surface. So the idea is there is a lot of agricultural runoff coming in there. But at this moment, we have researched already a lot of the aquatic causes of the eutrophication. So basically, sewage and other problems are solved right by now, and it has made the numbers drop by 60%, which is a lot. But still, 95% of the Baltic Sea is eutrophic. So the question that arises from those kind of facts is, why has the, or couldn't this agricultural runoff problem, why couldn't this be addressed in any way? What is the problem there?
Okay, so let me try to answer the why. The why is because of the data paradox. You see, scientists have worked for decades to try to figure out new inventions, to figure out new intervening, new state-of-the-art technique or equipment. However, they started from the wrong point, and that is why we see a difference. You see, did you know that the farmers are actually required by law to report every single thing that they do on their farm? And by that, I mean every fertilization application, every single soil test, every single new field implementations that they might have. But all of those data that are centralized in a huge database are all locked away from the scientists. Why, you may ask? Because these databases are backed by unions backing the farms, and these organizations have their own financial interests as well. And because they have their financial interests, it gives them the possibility within the legal system to privatize these informations. So how can we get to those informations? That is the problem that we're trying to address. So how can we address this? First of all, the most important thing, it is easier said than done, but it is addressing the trust between the scientists and the farmers. We have to form an alliance because we know that there is knowledge. We know that there is data to be exchanged. We know that the scientists have the analytical background, but the farmers have the practical knowledge. So if we combine these two and we try to use it to navigate through the legal system, then maybe we have a chance of solving or at least making our interventions somewhat more efficient. So where do we even start to do that? As we are researchers, we have made some research and we found out that the best possible place would be in Denmark, of course, because there is the Green Tripartite Agreement, which facilitated a great landmark of community where they have made up a system where the agricultural sector, as well as the government, as well as the environmental NGOs, they all work together. And this facilitation made it possible for people in Denmark to have the most progressive agricultural nutrient loading policies. So since they already have an infrastructure that works, we should also try to build on that, and we should try to cooperate with the boards. And in case the scientist needs, the farmers need anything from the scientist, we could do the farm level assessment and also have these bilateral data agreements. But bottom line, these are huge ambitions, but the main thing that we would like to take away with this project is to have a blueprint of how we are gonna navigate the legal system together as a knowledge alliance. So, since it is a very ambitious thing, we should also identify who are these people that are going to jumpstart this.
So we'll try to be these people. It is need to be a transdisciplinary team, and that's the reason we are actually the team. All of us will be working along the 6 months, but at the beginning, the most important person will be Tobias. He's an educator, so he will work on the trust with the farmers, and he will create the farm works among us to have a nice communication and to understand each other. Then I will come, I'm Ignacy, and I will analyze the nutrients as in the water, in the soil, and the nutrient flows to facilitate Nathalie to make the decision. She's an engineer, so she will decide how can we work in the landscape in order to improve the situation. And finally, we have Angie. She's a biologist, so she will study not only the Angie, but also the biodiversity. And we will have to hire a lawyer, obviously, to fight against these laws. Regarding the budget, you can see that more of it is for personal. this is because it's a project for persons and not for reagents. So, which is our future?
Yes, so if we change to the last slide. Looking ahead, if everything in an idealized world, if everything goes as we dream, this might provide some kind of framework for working in these kinds of situations. And this is not unique, not in the Baltic and not worldwide. Eutrophication is a worldwide problem, and we have a lot of it in the country where I am from, at least, in Norway. And to be able to connect with the farmers, we might get a better future. But we need your help. Yeah.
Thanks very much for the presentation, and I open questions from the stakeholder.
Yes, thank you so much. I don't know if you've introduced yourself before, but I'm Anna Törnström here at Åbo Academy, and we are part of a center that's studying exactly these questions here in Finland, and in this area just outside here. And I was thinking, thank you, first of all, for a very impactful start. I might actually steal that at some point. I think that was really great. And that's exactly what kind of these interdisciplinary thinking might do with these kinds of pitches. So I think that was really great. I also think you've gotten turned around from our discussions, a very interesting case study to go from. One of my questions is that where do you want to go with this project in terms of other scaling it up and so forth? What's the possibility of that? And then I was thinking in the spirit of inter to transdisciplinarity, how are you considering that here, given how you presented the timeline of how you would come in, and so how do you meet this co-creativity in the joint questions in the beginning and in this kind of the co-creativity of the study? Thank you. That's 2 questions.
Somebody the second part. So I try to answer the first part of that question. We said within a reasonable budget and 6 months of time, we do a pilot project, and we do it in a relatively easy country, but alongside the Baltic Sea, there are other countries with probably more restrictive policies. We chose that easy part and to move with the intention that we could hopefully transfer this to other countries with more difficulties, but we have already done some experience on board, probably some successful or some data that we can present that will help to get the ball rolling. So hopefully we could get around the Baltic Sea one time and have data and like a pilot project from every country, and then be able to upscale it to the entire region, because that is, it's still localized, it's still a localized project, because the country and also the types of farm might differ in those regions. So we still need to take that into account. Second part?
Okay, so in terms of us working together as a transdisciplinary team, when we saw the timeline, yes, it did seem like one of us would be heading like one part and then the next the other. But no, it's actually going to be a collaboration all throughout, because we have multiple feedback loops that need to be reiterated, because it is a very complex issue. We cannot deal with one single section one at a time. So throughout the whole experience, we are going to be working on it at the same time, along with the legal advisors.
Okay, is there a question from the jury? Yeah.
Congratulations on your speech. I'm Judith Lloreda from University of Barcelona. I would like to ask, because you were talking about the farmers and to engaging the farmers, but you also said that by law they have to share this data with the government, so the government keeps it. what is your contingency plan, or what if the farmers told you that go to the government and ask them, because I do everything I can, I send the data, I have been reducing the use of nitrogen or phosphorus through years and nothing has changed. What is your focus?
Okay, I'll go again. So, yeah, we realize that trying to change the policies is a very strenuous and long process. So 6 months is not enough for to carry out any of these, but this is only the jump start. The most important thing within our project is to start to facilitate the actual connection between the farmers as well as the scientists. Because every time the farmers see the scientists, they see clipboards, they see, okay, another survey. But this time we would like to facilitate a genuine connection, as you did with this transdisciplinary project, because none of us would have met or even collaborated if we didn't have the opportunity to meet and have a genuine human connection. And that is what we are trying to build on, along with the legal help, and if we can get it, with the cooperative boards.
Yeah, and this is also the reason why we have chosen Denmark, where a little bit of that has already been established, and we hope that we could build on that one, because there is probably not so much resistance against it.
Okay, we actually have one question online if we could answer quickly. So what impact does daily sea traffic have in the Baltic, or daily sailing of cruise ships in the fjords, and what impact did the building of the bridges in the Great Belt of Denmark? That's the question.
That is not part of the research, so I'm sorry.
Beyond the scope.
Not in the
Okay.
scope, because we have been looking at the agricultural side of it. That is a completely different research topic, in my opinion.
Okay, that's a valid response. Okay, thank you very much for your presentation and your answering questions.
Good morning, and thank you for being here. We are Group 6, and we present to you our proposal on addressing Botswana's climate adaptation problems through local agricultural knowledge from a transdisciplinary approach. Why transdisciplinary approach? Because we are a team of 4 doctoral researchers with different backgrounds and expertise in different areas, from sociology, geography, disease ecology, and AI. Before we begin, let me tell you a fun fact. All of us here eat food. And I can already see the uncomfortable look on some of you faces, because you're probably wondering, why is he telling us this? We all should know this. But fact is, not everyone who eats food at least thinks about the process of food production. And this is why it is important for us to have a look at Botswana's climate problem, whereby we need to put ideas together to solve this problem. And with this, Zane will tell you more about Botswana.
Just move the slide. Sorry. So, hello everyone. So first of all, I would like you to focus on this map of this Botswana. So first of all, let me tell you about Botswana. It's a country in southern Africa. If you look at, this is the rainfall map of this Botswana. So I am just particularly focusing on rainfall because its agriculture is completely dependent on rain. If you look at this map, you can check, you can look at this, that these eastern parts receive relatively higher rainfall than that of the western parts. So most of the population of Botswana, they're residing in these eastern parts. The rest of the Botswana region is not arable. So it has got semi-arid climate, but it is also facing few challenges, like droughts are, they're facing the droughts, challenges of droughts, and that climate is not favorable. It's, it's getting worse day by day for the crop production and all this stuff. So as their agriculture is completely dependent on rain, so it's rain-fed agriculture, and because of climate change and frequent droughts, their crop production and all this stuff are, they're getting affected. So because of growing climate vulnerability, their Botswana is facing challenges for the food security. So that's the problem what Botswana is facing. And to tackle this problem, we are trying to, address these things.
So, broader consequences. Here we will have independence on paper, dependency on the plate. Climate change multiplies geography into vulnerability. And I would like to reflect a bit more on this. So imagine, oh my God, I keep changing. Can you, someone? So imagine you're living in a country that is getting drier and drier every year, and you already have to import your food supply by 80% from a neighboring country, which is South Africa. And we have a farmer there who already knows how to adapt because they have this traditional local knowledge. But there is a missing puzzle, which they can't figure out how to talk to different stakeholders or these climate scientists or experts. And because of this missing puzzle, we are here to create that puzzle and bridge the connection. And within this climate change, we will try to easy this discrepancies. So here, Anna will create this.
Okay, I'll present the problem of it as we see it. So the problem, well, first what the problem is not. The problem is not that there is no data. There's not that there's no knowledge. The problem is that it's all held by different pieces. Everybody has a different piece of the puzzle. Many farmers in the region, they've been farming in arid climates for a long time. So some of them have developed their own sort of drought-resistant strategies. People in the ministry, they have big ideas, they have connections, and researchers have access to a lot of climate data. So it's about putting these pieces together. So practically, what did our project look into? So we broke it into 3 parts. We said part 1, so work package 1, what climate data is available for the region. This results in a data availability report. 2, what are the local priorities and solutions that already exist? And this will be done through expert interviews. And these the first 2 parts will be delivered to the ministry who has requested this information. And part 3, maybe the most important part, is how do we share this information back to the people who are going to use it? And for that, we have looked into a communication plan. Oops.
The first part of this 3-step proposed solution is to run a structure set to identify what data set exists on agriculture, climate, and socioeconomic in Botswana. And this will include a scan of Botswana's national repositories and global databases to identify this data. Following this, we will record metadata for each data set to assess its relevance and its quality, and also document limitations where relevant.
Next is the gathering of this expert data, so putting these pieces together. We are going to do this through a method called the Delphi method. So first we thought, do we do a literature review? Many of us are familiar with this, but a literature review has the downside that it really only collects formal published literature, and that's not what we're trying to do here. So in a Delphi method, you try and get a consensus from, they're called panelists, all these experts that you recruit. So we need to recruit experts with a broad background. So we've already looked at a few places within Botswana that we could recruit these people from. So it's a university in Botswana, the University of Agriculture, but also from the ministries, and finally from the farmers' associations. So in this process, you give iterative rounds of interviews, like I said, and first you give a more open brainstorming kind of question, and you start to see where the priorities lie, and then you give further rounds to narrow down their consensus. And lastly,
okay. And now we will have that communication plan that will translate the expert consensus into accessible language to be shared within the people who will use the information, which are the farmers themselves. The material will be shared by an existing network of agriculture extension workers with ties to local communities. And by this, we can at least tackle a bit this food fragility that Botswana is suffering from and the food dependency. And like this, we will have we will have one small step toward food independence for Botswana. Thank you.
Thanks very much for the presentation. So I think Tamara's going to ask a question on behalf of the stakeholders.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your nice presentation. Yeah, so the UNFCCC excuses themselves because they're in the middle of the mid-year convention for climate change. I think she was online, but she probably asked me to give you a bit of context of their challenge too. So, so the UNFCCC has a university partnership program, which is under the initiative of the Nairobi Work Program, which is actually collects a certain number of questions and knowledge gaps or know-how gaps from their different parties, so the different countries, who bring this up to the UNFCCC, and the UNFCCC then shares a whole bunch of these questions, or what we call thematic areas, for the universities to share them with their graduate students to work on these challenges. So they had about, I don't know, between 50 and 100 thematic areas possible to investigate on, all related to know-how and know-how adaptation for climate change. And maybe my first question would be, so on the process of selecting one area and one question, how did you end up choosing this area and this question for Botswana?
So yeah, how in the world did we win all the wide world, end with Botswana? Well, we had been formulating, we'd looked at a few of the questions on that list, and then we'd taken bits and pieces and combined them into a question, our own question. And then we looked back at the list and we said, actually, this is already very close to a question that is there. And the group of people who had submitted it was this group of countries in Southern Africa. So we decided to choose one of these countries as a case study, and we chose Botswana because Botswana is, as Zane presented, particularly climate vulnerable.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, sorry, can I reflect a bit more on?
Sure, go ahead.
So we're running out of time.
No, go ahead.
Actually, we wanted to take South Africa as a case study, but we ended up with Botswana because I think Botswana needs our help more than South Africa.
We had a lot of different options to choose from. And then we realized that the problem in Botswana is more severe as compared to all the different countries that we were supposed to choose from. And that is why we ended up with Botswana. And this is a problem that is at the ask of almost everybody because, like I said, we all eat food. So we all care about food.
Yeah. And it's also quite common in the theme generally. If you look up the group just previous to you was talking about knowledge sharing or governance, and you're attacking that through a different angle, maybe also. And just related to that in your methodology, so you mentioned interviewing or Delphi process interviewing experts. It's a bit of a less co-creation than dealing straightly with the farmers, because you mentioned that they have know-how too, right? And the indigenous know-how is also valuable. What's the risk of communicating the knowledge from the experts down to the farmers and not doing it from the farmers or with the farmers?
So in our panel of experts, I think we sometimes say expert just means someone with a degree, but we really in our list of places to recruit, we have the farmers union. So we think the farmers are experts as well, and we hope to have a sort of quota of experts from each sector. So at least include a few farmers in that process as well.
All right. Thank you, first of all, for the pitch and the proposal. Very, very engaging. I really like your objective to combine scientific knowledge with indigenous practices, but suspect that you will face some resistance, at least from some stakeholders, confronted with an alternative knowledge system. And your own position as outsiders just increases that likelihood that you will encounter resistance. And I was wondering, how does your project evaluate and plan for possible resistance? For example, from farmers with generational knowledge?
Well, one advantage we have is that our stakeholder from the UNCCC said, well, the first step would be that they have contact people who have submitted these questions, who are already interested in having them answered. So they will put us in contact with that person, so we have an introduction through someone they already know, and that lessens that outsider perspective. And then, sorry, what was the first part again? Okay. So, okay, yeah. So I think that hopefully the resistance will be lowered by sort of being introduced that way. And then if the farmers are themselves taking up the information, we hope they will value the information from their peers highly as well. And maybe that's an advantage rather than a disadvantage, that it doesn't come from on high, as per se.
Okay, we've come to time. So thanks again for the presentation and questions.
Hi, everyone. So today we are going to present you the subject of the real-world impact of regional strategy. I am Laura, I'm a lawyer, and I worked on this project with Max, Carmen, and Alex. And so we address the question of the real impact of these regional strategies and how their implementation can be strengthened in practice. So our focus on Southwest Finland, Varsinais-Suomi. This region has about 495,000 inhabitants, and the regional strategies are coordinated by the council of the regional council of Southwest Finland. In this region, there are more than 25 municipalities, and the regional strategies are implemented with more than 60 stakeholders, including companies, citizens, but also NGOs and universities. The 5 main domains of the regional strategies are sustainability solutions in economy, professional health solution, smart solutions, maritime solution, food innovations, and food security. So this strategy or work on a 4-year basis, and we wonder how to assess the implementation of the impact of these strategies, and especially the progresses of them. Sorry. This is where the big challenge is, because the Regional Council of Southwest Finland already have worked with surveys to assess the implementation, but we wonder how this can be strengthened.
Okay, yeah, so exactly. If you're wondering why is this transdisciplinary, I mean, you can just look at the slide and can imagine how many people and how many interests are involved in all of this, especially universities having different interests, of course, for example, to company. And it cannot be stretched enough that the efforts that are partaken into getting assessment of how effective this implementation is already done on a 4-year basis by all the stakeholders. But a typical phenomenon is basically that the outreach to the different stakeholders is greater than the impact and the feedback that the regional council is receiving. So the main question is basically, how can we somehow maybe increase the amount of feedback gathered throughout these different stakeholders? And this is where we want to propose Connect. Sounds very fancy and complicated, so we thought about calling it Collaborative Network Navigation and Engagement for Transformative Regional Governance. Maybe forget about that for a second, but have a look at our main goal. And this is basically to increase assessment involvement in all of this. And we want to do it basically in 2 steps. So first of all, we want to understand which different stakeholders do we really have in the region once again. Because, I mean, we're not the region council, right? So we somehow need to figure this out in the first step. And we could do this by having a look into different stakeholders individually, or for example, only one of the main research areas here, so for example only agriculture. But of course then we're somehow missing what identifies a stakeholder that is non-responding in this case. So what we want to do is we want to do a stakeholder profile of a non-responding stakeholder to a responding stakeholder in the first case, to really map all these different characteristics that they might share. Because of course you would say, okay, a citizen is maybe not a company, but maybe they share similar interest in total. In the second step, we want to improve this involvement through a strategy that we call adaptive communication. Because what you of course could do is just change your strategy as a whole, right? You could say, okay, our strategy at the moment, it's not effective, let's change it up a bit. But of course, if you just use a second strategy and apply this to, for example, an NGO and a company, of course, the impact might be different once again. So what we propose is that you use 2 different ways of communicating to a non-responding stakeholder and a responding stakeholder to somehow adapt the output that you once again get here. Because of course, for example, a company is more interested into financial and economical benefits out of this, while an NGO might be, for example, more interested in their impact on the strategy itself.
So my name is Carmen, I'm a geographer, and I'm doing a PhD in environmental governance. So you will wonder now how we come up with this methodology. What is behind this methodology? So behind this methodology is this transdisciplinary integration framework. We evaluate the different disciplines that could be involved on this, for example, governance, communication, regional planning, sustainability, stakeholder research, but also all the different expertise that we have and skills that we have. Laura is a lawyer, I'm a geographer, Max did biomedical research, and Alex is an expert in museums. So you will wonder, how come we use all of this to evaluate the stakeholder ecosystem in Southwest Finland, in the Southwest Finland region? We come up with some adaptive engagement outcomes. Oops, I think I'm going back. Yeah. Yes, so we organize this in 3 different, we organize our pilot project in 3 different departments. The first department, the Department of Network Direction and Engagement, will be in charge of improved coordination, to stronger the strategy implementation, but we're also going to have a Department of Risk Assessment and Legal Consulting that will assure inclusive participation. And finally, we'll have a Department of Communication Strategies that will, of course, be in charge of the communication strategy, how to implement this, and how also to assess the new strategy that we will come up with. Oh, sorry. So we just have 6 months to do this. So how are we going to do this? Max already explained how, what we're going to do, but how we divided this. First, we're going to start with the traditional stakeholder mapping in the first month and the second month. But we want to go beyond. We want to analyze the participation pattern analysis, and this is a very qualitative assessment. We want to understand why they are not participating and who is also not being considered a stakeholder here, and why not. And then we're gonna, on the third month, we're gonna pose a meta-stakeholder model. A meta-stakeholder model that includes, of course, all the participants, the non-participants, and to assess why they are not being participating yet. The final 3 months of our work will be for the communication strategy, to create a new communication strategy, having into account the new stakeholders that we mapped, to do an implementation of the strategy, and finally an assessment, a new assessment of the new communication strategy. Of course, we have a pilot for this in Southwest Finland, but since we all come from different places, we would love to escalate this regional strategy to other countries as well. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thanks very much for the presentation. So is there a question from stakeholders? Do we have, just the microphone there.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this. My name is Salla-Maria Lauttamäki. I'm from the Regional Council of Southwest Finland, and here with me is my colleague. Christina, do you want to?
From the Land Use Planning Unit in the same council.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much, because you brought after a discussion on Tuesday, it seems that you have taken like leaps forward, and I feel that you really heard what we said and took it and made a new proposal from it. So I really appreciate that, and I think that you have brought some really nice perspectives to our work, and I think we have ideas already. And I have to say that I love this Connect framework that you have created, because for those of you that don't know it, the vision in our new regional strategy is that we are a region building connections and linking Finland to the West. So building a Connect network is particularly good for us. And this topic is really important and interesting for us in the sense that we are, of course, trying to make an impact with our regional strategy. But in order to have that impact, we need to create ownership in our stakeholders. And in order to have that, we need to know who they are and reach out to those that are there and those that are not participating at this stage. So I think that's really, really nice that you are pointing out for us to find those that are not participating at the moment. I was wondering if you have like an idea at the moment who those might be. Who are the stakeholders that don't, of course, we haven't made the ecosystem mapping yet, and we don't have the research at this point, but do you have an idea who are those stakeholders that we should look out for more? That was my question. Christina, do you have something that you...
Yes, thank you also for my part. Very interesting points.
Might it be okay if we directly respond to that before I forget the question?
Okay.
And then
Of course.
It's a quite complex question, right? Because also during our talk you mentioned that it's, for example, not always one company which does not reply or one sector that does not reply. But I would say also something that we brainstormed is that you somehow probably are going to have actors who do not feel the need to be part of this. So they don't see their personal maybe benefit or involvement in this. This is something also Carmen can describe probably a bit better than I do.
Yeah, it's about also the ownership of the strategy and how to communicate this ownership. And for example, we discussed briefly that there was a citizen engagement panel with low participation, but still with participation. Sometimes are people from the different neighborhoods that start owning this and escalate these strategies or these ideas, and also make NGOs to be more interested on this, or also business companies to be more interested in the ideas. So sometimes these citizen engagement panels also will work, because sometimes they have an identity in the neighbor that they want also to share in a more different scale. So,
thanks.
Thank you for your interesting points. We will absolutely learn from them a lot and rethink. But one underlying, maybe a little bit critical question. I interpret your presentation as that you think the more the better. The more we have involvement, the more effective are the impacts. And I would like to question that a little bit. Is it necessary so? Is it the amount we are looking for, or maybe really the effects of implementation and impacts?
I can start. Yes, it's a very good question, actually. And of course, you already have a lot of stakeholders. More than 60 stakeholders are different to follow up with them. Why are they not participating already? But this is a qualitative assessment, so it's also good to have different perspectives. Of course, when we do this analysis, this qualitative analysis, we're gonna also learn who actually don't want to be part of this, which is also a good position to take sometimes, because they will be looking maybe for other ideas, or the strategy does not fit with their identity or their objectives. So maybe at the end, when we evaluate the new strategy, could be good to also map this to whose perceptions actually are in line with the strategy.
And I mean, also, of course, there's in Germany, there's a saying, the more cooks you have, the worse the output is going to be, or the food, which in this case probably is also going to be the case, right? The more people you're going to ask, we also realized this throughout the whole summer school, that the more people you ask about feedback, the more diverse it's going to get and the harder it is to implement stuff in the end. But that's why we really, with the project, want to focus a little bit more on this feedback receiving perspective and not too much about the implementation itself. And here, of course, also you could adapt this again. So the more feedback might not be the better feedback, but in the end, trying to maybe get the people participating that don't give feedback at all might be a perspective to have a look into. And not to get everybody involved, but maybe the voices that are not heard yet, at least.
Yeah, I think it's also more about the coordination between the stakeholders as well. And so in this sense, more qualitative assessments.
Okay, thank you for that. I think we're at time. Okay, so hello everyone. Today's presentation is going to be about how we can make the urban planning and urban housing projects more inclusive beyond the nuclear family model. And perhaps by way of introduction, I want you all to picture or imagine the following scenario. So say, for example, that I'm a 58-year-old woman, recently divorced, and I'm sharing a 3-bedroom apartment with my adult son and my best friend, who herself just moved in after her own divorce. So what we have here is 3 incomes, 1 household, and yet 0 legal or architectural recognition. And I am not an exception in this scenario. I am the pattern. Non-nuclear household structures like this and include, for example, and this is by no means exhaustive, co-housing seniors, multi-generational immigrant households, so-called rainbow families right here in Turku, and single parents that share custody and childcare. And across Europe, and particularly here in Finland, these non-nuclear households are not a niche anymore. They're the new normal. Finland has one of the lowest shares of households with underage children, just 18% in the European Union. So let that sink in. The nuclear family model that the urban planning process is supposed to respond to, and which it is built around, is today just a minority. And the problem is the mismatch. So the urban planning process has not caught up yet. Housing units and apartment design are still built around 2 main flavors. So 2 small units for couples and a bit larger units for parents with kids. And zoning often restricts unrelated adults, 2 or more that share a living or live together. The result, that these households do not fit the boxes that the planners assume leads to the fact that they basically disappear. So they're absent from the housing needs assessment. They're absent from the picture of who belongs in our neighborhoods. Well, in other words, they basically are invisible. And invisibility has teeth because it means that housing mismatches and overcrowding. It means elders isolated by default. It means shared houses coded or perceived as illegal occupancy and therefore threatened with displacement. And it means policy that keeps reproducing the very gaps that it is reluctant to see and acknowledge. And so for that, our question today is, how can we make these communities and these households visible again? And perhaps relatedly, how do we build this visibility into the way we plan, not just Turku, but the rest of our cities globally?
Okay, if you could please go to the next slide. Now that you have heard about the problem, I also want to answer why we are the correct people to tackle this one. So the reason this problem persists is that everything around inclusive housing has so far been addressed in silos. There hasn't been collaboration yet. So no sharing of knowledge, also no sharing of the actual problem. And then most importantly, there is no sustained dialogue between disciplines and stakeholders alike. Most importantly, also with the people whose housing needs are actually affected. And that is why our project is transdisciplinary in nature. And we are not treating housing just as a technical planning issue, but as a holistic one. It is an emotional, it is a social, it is a political, and it is a lived experience. And that is why our team reflects this approach. James brings experience from urban planning, helping us to understand housing systems, spatial planning, and urban futures. Moritz contributes public administration and organizational sciences, which allows us to examine bureaucracy issues, governance, and maybe implementation barriers that we might find. Then Ashraf brings critical philosophy, helping us to understand different notions of family, different definitions, critical thinking on these issues. My name's Jana, I'm from Peace Studies and Migration, and I bring insights on trauma, inclusion, displacement, and cohesion in the city. And then lastly, we have Jane, who comes from the natural sciences, bringing another insight on how to work with the data, with how to work with well-being. And then probably most importantly, we have the stakeholders, the non-academic component of our project. And that could be residents, artists, communities, NGOs, that then bring one side that academia alone cannot fill, that is lived experience, that is practical insights. So I think the novelty of this project is the dialogue itself that we are creating. So by connecting disciplines with lived experience and with arts-based approaches, we will help to make these issues visible. The households that have been invisible for so long, we want to bring to public attention.
So, before proposing solution, we first need to understand how diverse families experience housing in their everyday lives. So, we will begin with talking interviews where the residents, participants get us through their neighborhoods, helping us to understand how housing affect their daily routines and experience. And next, we will organize collaborative workshops with participants, residents, NGOs, community groups to identify common challenge, needs, and perspective related to housing. So together, these activities allow us to move beyond statistics and understand housing in lived experience, creating a foundation for the next step of the project.
But of course,
just understanding the housing needs of non-nuclear families is not enough to fix the issue. We have to understand how urban planning decisions are being made in Turku. Who are the important stakeholders and what are the important steps if we want to achieve inclusive housing in the future. Therefore, in the second step, we want to conduct process mapping and document analysis to really understand what are the key steps and stakeholders in Turku's urban planning process. Who makes the decisions? What bureaucratic hurdles are in the way of inclusion for the moment? And at what steps could the interests of non-nuclear families be considered in the process? Of course, we don't want to reinvent the wheel with this process. We know that there are already some means of participatory governance in this process. For example, citizens can send in emails commenting on urban planning projects. However, it is still interesting to see why these means have not been sufficient so far and how we could build on them in the future. Once we know what the needs of non-nuclear households are and what the urban planning process looks like, of course, we want to harness that information. Now, realistically, we cannot achieve procedural change fundamentally within a 6-month project. However, what we can do is raise awareness of this issue and begin a social dialogue about inclusive housing. And to achieve this, we have decided to partner with a group of socially engaged artists to create a series of art installations across the public spaces in Turku. They're going to receive our data and from this create a vision of what inclusive housing could look like in Turku. And by this, we're going to use these installations as hubs for a social dialogue that people can contribute their own experiences, and from this create awareness and a social dialogue about inclusive housing in the city.
Okay, so before we conclude, I just want to reiterate what we have mentioned already, that we want to be realistic about what this project can achieve, because we only have 6 months. So short term, our goal is simple. We just want to create awareness and hopefully open dialogue about housing. Through the interviews, workshops, and collaborative workshops that's very grounded, very lived experienced of different families. So this is what we can realistically achieve within 6 months, and this is what we committed to. But through this awareness, hopefully, long term, it may lead to if awareness leads to reflection, and reflections lead to conversation, then hopefully, we can inform policies of urban processes in Turku, or maybe in different cities, and we can make use of Turku as an example, and we can replicate it to other cities around the world. And speaking of this is a good quote, because as we have seen throughout this project, family life is becoming increasingly diverse, and we have to recognize that. Yet the ways we imagine housing do not always reflect these realities. And what emerged from our discussions is not simply a housing issue. And as we have said a while ago, it's more of a visibility issue. Some experiences are really recognized, because while others really remain outside the conversations that shape how housing and urban life are understood. And addressing this challenge requires more than one perspective, because us alone are technical experts, but we can be facilitators. That's why we need to go grounded.
Sorry, you're over time now by 2 minutes.
But why art? But we don't just want to speak at ordinary art here. We want conscious and participatory and socially engaged art. Because if dialogue can't be done inside offices of planners and limits the participation of people, then we bring the dialogue into space, and that's what we want for this project. That's why it's called Beyond the Nuclear Home. Because if we talk about inclusive housing, then we need to ask ourselves, who are we planning for? And the better question is, whose city are we building for? Thank you.
So I think we'll take some questions from the stakeholder perspective.
Thank you very much. I'm trying to get in touch with the stakeholder that you've worked with, but in the meantime, I will ask a question. As I said before, during this session, I'm from Utrecht in the Netherlands, but I've spent, just like all of us, 1 week here in Turku, and very often an example came up, namely the example of the tram, that took many decades to be agreed upon. The tram has to return to the city, but it was hard to change.
40 years.
40 years, yeah, decades. So there is, I love your project and the way in which you also argued for using the imagination and using arts-based methods for that. But at the same time, when change is so hard, how do you think this city is actually ready for an innovative project like yours?
Very good question, thank you. Like we mentioned in the project, we absolutely realized these kind of fundamental procedural changes are very, very difficult, and it's going to take time. That's why we cannot achieve something like this in 6 months. But we also believe that because all of these changes are ongoing and there's already a public dialogue about urban planning, people are, Turku is undergoing densification, we have the tram project, people are already talking about it. They're going to see that there are changes happening in their city, and it's going to prime them towards continuing that conversation and continuing a dialogue about how we can improve the vision of the city even more. And because of that, it's especially then a good moment to increase the visibility of the most vulnerable groups that have so far not been considered in the process, especially across those 40 years. So we believe that it's a good moment right now to attach ourselves to these ongoing conversations and leverage that into long-term political change.
Yeah, thank you. So it's an interesting crossover you make in your project to include artistic research and artists. So what made you decide to do this?
I quickly want to say something about that, and then I pass it on to our artist. We know that public policy planning, everything can be really, really slow, especially here in Turku. But what we thought, one thing, no matter how hard the times are or how slow, one thing you can't get rid of is art. Art always persists. Artists are always there, no matter the situation. So we think it is a really good way to make it visible.
Yes, and during the conversation with our stakeholders, like she mentioned, that like policymakers, decision makers are really so hard to reach. Then if this dialogue cannot happen, then let's put like the dialogue in the public space. And how can we do that? We can only do that through arts, because arts open conversations. It asks us to pause and reflect. And eventually it will like trickle down to people. Because people has the ears, the eyes. It's very effective, and people will talk, and eventually it will reach like the decision makers, the policy makers. We're not actually like trying to change urban planning. We're trying to bring awareness and let people talk and keep talking about it, and that's the power of art.
Okay, thank you for that. I think we're at time. Yeah.
This is not what it should be doing. Do we have the right link? Well. Oh. Can we? I'm so sorry about this. It worked yesterday. Because the order matters for our presentations for that. Right. Thank you for your patience. It's Friday evening, perhaps this evening. You've had a long week at work and you're looking forward to a nice evening in the sauna, maybe accompanied by a nice beverage.
But it turns out that you're not the only person in the city who's had plans like this. And now this beautiful evening, everyone in the city are turning on their electric saunas to be heating up. The energy grid is overloaded. While this might be a somewhat simplified example, it really illustrates how we are reliant on a energy grid with enough capacity to fulfill everyone's needs, and how it immediately affects us when it fails. Energy is for everyone. It is for us as PhD researchers from 4 different disciplines, 3 different countries. It's for everyone in here, and it's for everyone outside of this building.
Thank you. Look at the city of Turku today. The city has set one of the most ambitious climate targets of the EU to become carbon neutral until 2029. That's 3 years from now. But here's the reality. The region still imports 85% of its electricity. Demand of electricity is projected to double by 2040. And on top of that, more electric cars, more heat pumps, more factories going electric, all at the same time. The grid is already under stress. Existing research and strategy, whether from Finland's energy vision, Turku's climate plan, and Business Turku, focus heavily on the technical side. What infrastructure, what investment. But to our point of view, there is something fundamental that is missing. The people who actually support the transition, who pay the costs, who decide. And as Business Turku noted, a common view of the future is needed.
So when it comes to the question how we could tackle all these problems Olympe mentioned, we got quite lucky because Turku is already a lighthouse city when it comes to the energy transition. So there's already the climate plan 2029, and Turku is supposed to meet like these really bond plans they had. So that's a nice thing. So the question really was how Turku can continue being a lighthouse city in the Nordic area, in whole Europe, and maybe also in the whole world. So the long-term goal is that Turku turns to a research smart city by 2040. And that would mean that the emissions could also fall below 0. So that would be a really great plan. So there was this huge question we had to tackle. How can we achieve this massive aim we could achieve? But yeah, how could that work out? So we brought up our inter- and transdisciplinary solution of understanding community concerns. Because as we said, energy is about the people, it's about all of us. And so the question would be how we could involve with all these stakeholders, all these people being involved in this. So research shows that actually caring about the citizens and their concerns is crucial for establishing a balanced energy transition. That would mean that we take their needs, for example, sauna, and their concerns really seriously. We build on their knowledge. We would educate them, pointing on energy literacy, and would turn them from a consumer to prosumers, from a top-down process to a bottom-up process.
But now concretely, how are we going to do it? Our research combined 3 different methods, all of each tackling a different piece of the puzzle. First, we want to do a citywide citizen survey. We will reach to 1,200 residents across urban neighborhoods, suburbs, and of course the archipelago, asking about their awareness, their acceptance, their also acceptance of specific technologies like wind or district heating, and whether they feel fairly treated and whether they want to be more involved. Secondly, because it's not just a survey, we want to do energy price modeling using the statistic of Finland data. We will map how costs of this transition fall across 5 types of household to rural household in the archipelago from district heating city household. We will then test compensation mechanism like social tariffs or carbon pricing that could make the transition feel fairer and whether that changes the acceptance. Now, quickly, we also wanted to carry out a governance audit. We will assess how well Turku will currently involve citizens in energy decision and benchmark this against cities that already have an expertise in such participative settings, such as Copenhagen, Freiburg, and Dijon. This is the moment to act.
Yeah, so to sum this up, with our method, we want to really kickstart a participatory vision for the Turku 2040. We heard from our stakeholder business Turku some idea how this could look like. We also have some ideas how this could look like, but since we are, apart from Ellen, actually not citizens of Turku, and the sample size of 1 is not really to academic standards, we really want to approach the citizens and get them involved in the process and also get them essentially involved in the solution. So overall, we really want this participatory approach because we think this is the only way to really get this going and get to a solution that everyone is happy with, because in the end, energy is for everyone. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and we'll take a question from the stakeholder.
Okay, thank you. So I'm Ted Bergman from Business Turku, and this has been really good for us. This is actually a work in progress. So we are going to have a vision out for 2040 during the, let's say, end summer is the target, and this is very valuable input. And what happens in Finland typically when we talk about energy, we are a society with a lot of engineers, and of course then we gather together and then we plan what to do. But the bad thing with engineers is that they forget about for whom are we doing things, and that you brought really well up for us to think about. We had the target in one of the slides, and then we forget about it, and then we look at, okay, what is the grid, what do we do, and so on. Sauna, of course, extremely important, and of course we could go out and ask that how often do you want to have saunas? Do you have to have it on Friday, or can you think about having it on Saturday morning to spread the load? But my question is a little bit, how do we do a survey? What do we ask? And actually you brought up one topic that was quite interesting that you don't have, and that is the price of electricity and the fairness, and that we don't have in the current focus. What are we targeting? that could be one topic to ask, aside from when you have the sauna. But how do you think that we should go out and ask the public and get real questions for them so that we get answers?
The questions we want to target both the public opinion, sort of what would people be, perhaps would someone be willing to live near a wind park for a cheaper electricity price, those kinds of more practical questions. But then on a more on a sort of deeper level, do they feel like they know enough about energy questions in order to have an opinion? Do they feel like is the information readily available, concrete enough? So really it's about the communication too that we want to map out. I think most people don't think about electricity all that much, except for when it doesn't work. And so that is why we think it's very important to start really basic, really map out the basic stuff here.
Take a question from the audience here as well.
Thanks, Jake. Yes, I actually continue a little bit from what you asked, and that is about how to reach the people. What have you thought about the methods how to do your surveys? And my question is actually to think about a system where you can actually build a long timeline working with this, even though we are many Finns trust in engineering and what comes out of that, but I think it's very wise to do also different kind of approaches. So how to do it over a long time in a systematic way?
That's actually a good and important question too, especially when it comes to Turku. Did you want to add something? Sorry. Okay.
After you answered.
So we especially thought about the archipelago region, because that's a region that's especially missed out usually when it comes to citizen, when we reach out to citizens. So that would be an area we would need to think about, maybe building something like an urban living lab too. So urban living labs are institutions where researchers and citizens and other stakeholders come together. So that would be a way to really go into the urban life and getting into touch with people. But then of course we would also need a more systematically way to get our service to the people. So that would be also a cost question, of course. So we really thought about a really research based way of grounded in social sciences to have a good baseline at least, and then leveling.
I just want to add something very quick, just perhaps more on the technical side. When it comes to survey, in order to maximize the participants, we wanted to actually translate also the survey in English, in Finnish, but also in Swedish, because there is a part of actually the region who speaks Swedish. Moreover, I think that it's a real opportunity that we are not in this challenge alone. We are with our stakeholder, we are with the university, and so we can also use their credibility and their network to really widespread this survey and perhaps reaching to other citizens which otherwise will not respond to it. So I think it's also a way to really be together with that approach. That's it.
Thank you. Good answers. I think the living labs, it's a very good idea to get qualitative data about what can be done and even what cannot be done. That works very well in that respect. The other point is that there actually, when it comes to quantitative data and ongoing research, there are already citizens panels, for example, in the city of Turku. So it would be very advisable to use existing data and existing systems because that's much quicker, that's more reliable results that way.
Yes, it's also important when it comes to the costs too. So thank you.
Yeah, just wanted to add, of course, we don't have the ambition to reinvent the wheel and everything. If there's like infrastructure that is already there, we would be very happy to use it, of course. That would be a great way because just more data is better. And then if there's already infrastructure there, would happily use it, of course.
Okay, I think we are at time, so thanks for the presentation. So now the jury is we're going to step out of the room and we're going to make a decision on who we think is going to be the winning presentation for today. Okay, everyone, I think everybody is here. So the jury has met. We've come to a decision. But before we announce the decision, we just wanted to give some general feedback as well to all the presentations. So, Kinga, do you want to go first with the? Yeah.
So first of all, congratulations to everyone. I think you did a great job in like 5 days, plus those days that you've not been here. It's just amazing. And I hope that you enjoy this process as much as we did, how you developed and how you came up with newer and newer ideas, how you consolidated your ideas throughout this process. It's not an outcome, it's more of a process that you can benefit from on a longer term. And we appreciate our stakeholders being here and contributing to these conversations, because we all believe that it enriched the discussions on these certain topics, that some of them grew out of the first cluster that we were put into and became flourishing ideas for future. I'm going to give you some feedback on the proposals and what we heard here in terms of the methodology. Basically, this is my narrower field of study. So we really appreciated the innovative methods you came up with and how you grounded it in certain system thinking frameworks. There were some more traditional and more innovative methods you proposed in your research, and there were some pretty new methodologies like the meta-stakeholder approach, which we really liked, and we thought a lot about it and even talked about it. And there were some more traditional methods like the Delphi method that was used in an innovative surrounding. There were questions about feasibility of the different methodology approaches. 6 months is a very short time for any kind of research to do. Sequential research could be time-consuming very often. So I think it was, again, a very good process for you to think about your own research at home, how it can be executed, how it can be feasible. So thank you very much again for all the energy you put into that part as well. And I'm going to pass the mic on to Kristen.
Yeah, so yeah, thank you also from my side that I think for us it was also an experiment to invite stakeholders to propose challenges to you, and then we assigned you, or you gave up your interest, but we mixed you into these teams. You didn't know each other before. You really went through a pressure cooker week of getting to know each other, understanding each other, working with the stakeholder, and really a deep dive. And I was also looking at the transdisciplinarity, of course, of your proposals. And I saw a great variety of tools that you demonstrated today, which you also described in your proposals, like the Delphi method, it was mentioned, the walking interviews, living labs. Yeah, the whole idea, of course, is to include other voices and perspectives, indigenous knowledge, knowledge from stakeholders, and another method, of course, were the co-design workshops or dialogue and peer-to-peer exchange. So I thought, yes, you really showed us, how you can design such an approach to really, work towards transdisciplinarity. So thank you.
Yeah, and building on that idea of transdisciplinarity, I think in terms of the presentations and the pitches, you really include both the sort of the cognitive and the affective aspects. You were not just talking to the traditional academic audience, but you included, there was humor put throughout, there was calls to action. Those things are very important. And then also, particularly the sort of theatrics of turning off the lights, for example, or, starting a presentation with closing your eyes and sort of imagining, and the soundscape as well that was included in that. Including things like that are very imaginative and sort of bring a wider audience into the idea that you're talking about. So I just wanted to highlight some of those as particularly, they're not sort of things that we normally see in presentations, and I think they sort of add a lot to this type of type of pitch. So congratulations on that, and likewise, I'd like to thank the stakeholders for being involved, because I think it's definitely elevated the experience, both from us as the coaches, but also I think for your experience. I think there was many saying that they were confused about the idea, and then when they had the conversations with the stakeholders, things start to crystallize and become a bit more real to them. So. Thanks for everybody being involved in that, and then I suppose without further ado, I'll make the announcement of who is winning the pitch for the Charm EU Doctoral Summer School 2026. So it is going to be Group 5. So that was the Energy Group. So. Do you want to say something from? No. So I think there's a small gift here.
Oh yeah. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yes, we we thought maybe we should have given all of you this when we started, but we wanted to give you a gift so that you can remember Åbo and the varied weather that we have in Åbo, and welcome you back at some point when it's a bit colder also. So. Varsågod.
And well done to you all.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe we should turn over there.
Wait to look at this.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Your hair.
Oh, my hair. Oh, can we invite our stakeholder to take a photo?
Yeah.
And Hannes too.
Here, I'll leave you. Here, I'll leave you to the stakeholders.
Whole family. Thank you.
So. Yeah.
I will be sleeping with that.
And obviously there was one winner, but I think we had to choose one team. But I think the presentations sort of spoke for themselves, and the amount of work that you put in such a short time. So I think there's a round of applause for everybody being involved in this week. And obviously, process is important as the outputs as well. So hopefully you've learned a lot, and it's been great to engage with you all throughout the week as well. So yeah, I think we'll be. Oh, do you want to?
Yeah, I will go and ask if we can have the lunch earlier. So yeah.
So hopefully we can have some.
Just a few words to. A nice round of applause for organizing committee. Anna, you're running away too fast. Anna, come here. Come back. Anna, Jessica, Nelly, Jessica, the whole organizing team. Thank you so much, Anna. Great organization. And
thank you.
I think there's people in the background over here who also helped out with the week as well. So. Yeah. Okay. Now Anna will go. I think Anna's checking to see if we can have lunch slightly earlier. I think that's what she's on her way to check for. So, I suppose you were on your way to get tea and coffee. So I suppose you could probably do that while we figure out if lunch is next. So, yeah.
Take a last picture. Everybody on the stage, please.